Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, we're welcoming back Tiffany Scherado. Tiffany has been making a strong impact across the automotive industry and is involved in a number of different areas, including her work with amazing women in automotive. Really, really excited to talk about all of that. In this episode, we're going to do just that. We'll dig into that work, the community being built, and where things are headed next. Tiffany, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So nice to run into you at Vision.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, we were just talking about that. Uh, Tiffany and I were able to catch up at the Vision High Tech Conference in Kansas City as we record this a couple weeks ago, and you had a really, really nice booth set up in a great spot. Like I think that might have been one of the best spots in all the conference, wasn't it?
Yes, they're very good to us. They donate that booth every year so that we could be there and help support and recruit ladies into the industry. So we very much appreciate Sherry and Milwaukee and their team. It's awesome.
Let's take a minute to talk about that dedication that Milwaukee had, the Midwest Auto Care Association, and Sherry in general just puts on a phenomenal show. From the independent side of things, I don't know that there's much that competes with that in terms of the quality of training and the amount of technical training that's out there. I really, really enjoy that. I know a lot of technicians really do. There are some great classes from some of the best trainers in the business.
Absolutely. And I think some of the things that people don't realize is how smoothly that team runs behind the scenes. We work with a lot of industries and all these I'm sorry, associations, and all these associations are very important and they all work extremely hard. But Vision's been around for a long time and they really had it down to an art, and she wholeheartedly wants to be able to impact the industry in a positive way. And if anybody ever has, suggestions or classes, they're always looking to improve and make it better. So I recommend that they reach out to the team and say, "Hey, we have trouble in our shop, and we want this kind of training. We're seeing a lack of this when we're hiring, or whatever the case." And I guarantee you, their staff will look into it to try to add that. They love to have input from the industry. They're great.
Yeah, and not only get the input, but actually listen to it. I think they do a phenomenal job of that. And I had a great conversation with Sherry prior to the show opening or the expo part of the show opening. And she was going through a lot prior to that too. She had her mother and some health complications there. And for her to, it was like a week or two prior to the show, she's going through a lot of stuff. And to have that show go off the way it did, and just like you said, very seamless, very welcoming. I think that's the other thing. Anytime you saw somebody with the vest on or one of the shirts, that always so welcoming and inviting. And so people that maybe haven't been to that conference before, and especially like I think a lot of times with technicians, maybe they don't get to go to as many of those types of shows. And so the feeling of comfort walking into those doors in a huge, huge facility is pretty cool.
Yeah, they do have that very homey, family type atmosphere. So many of the same people come back every year, so there's so many relationships and people catching up and friendships being developed and all the networking. It's very exciting. And like one thing I want to mention is their attention to detail with stuff. For example, we had our women's breakfast there. We always do some type of a women's event in correlation with the show to get all the ladies together, and they came down and visited and checked on us, and we had to add some tables because it went way better than we expected, which was exciting. But Sherry was like, "Okay, here's a couple things I think we need to do next year. You guys are outgrowing this space. I'm gonna get you some audio. We need," and just like I said, just constantly wanting to make it better. But we were happy. I didn't get any negative feedback. Everybody was completely satisfied, but they're just like, "No, we've got to do this. We've got to make it better." And that's just them in a nutshell.
Mm. People that you really root for and want to see do well, and I just have the utmost respect for Sherry and the entire team for the quality of show they put on each and every year. It is something else. So That's enough about vision. Let's talk about you. You have so much going on. I was just I popped up your LinkedIn page, and it's been a while since we've really caught up. And I'm just looking at everything you've got going on, and my goodness, I'm overwhelmed just looking at it. Tell us the latest. What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I think last time we talked, I was, of course, running the shop with my dad, which I still do. We have a retail side and a wholesale division that we run. I believe I was doing all that at the time, and then got into Amazing Women and Automotive with Naylin. But since then, I have become one of the board of directors for ATRA, the Transmission Rebuilders Association, down in San Antonio. I represent Region 5. It's also a great association to work with, and if you have a lot of transmission shops listening, they have great training. It's really been a joy to be able to work with their team, and it's a good show down in San Antonio if anybody needs transmission-specific training. It's a lot of fun. So, this is my 2nd year on the board with them. Let's see, what else am I doing? I'm always working with the local schools, you know that.
Yeah.
Is on my school connect page, seeing if anybody needs anything. Um, this year we donated the Ramsey financial curriculum to a couple of our local schools.
I can't tell you how much I love that. That is such a cool idea and so needed. So needed.
Yeah, and in Oklahoma, some states may be different, but in Oklahoma specifically, they don't require any kind of financial curriculum in schools. And they become our employees, and their money problems come to us. And it creates absenteeism and, stress and mental health problems and so many things. So if we can get in there and eliminate some of that, that I feel like the money we spent on the curriculum is well worth it.
Oh, I and what a different way of coming to the school too, right? I think so many schools, we talk a lot about this part of I think the schools have been conditioned to where whenever a shop reaches out to them, they almost are like guarded because they're like, what do they want? What do they want now? What do they want now? And when you are approaching it in the sense that it's you're trying to help the students, you're trying to help the program, and you're trying to do something bigger than just recruit that one student. I think there's so much value in that, and in with what you're doing in giving that Ramsey program away could have a huge impact on somebody's life. I think it will have a big impact on somebody's life, and so that goes far beyond, like, just getting somebody in the doors and trying to recruit them. You're having a significant impact on somebody's life.
Well, and the industry as a whole, we all for years have been fighting that stigma of, it's just dirty. There's not much value. You don't want your son or daughter to be working in that industry. But when that kiddo, that student comes home and tells their parents about this curriculum that's being donated by this automotive shop, and they came to speak to their class about being an entrepreneur, I mean, for a second, you take a step back and go, really? An automotive shop is doing that?
Right.
Absolutely. We're invested in the community. We're a strong business, and we want to make an impact and give back to the community that's given to us so much.
No,
So
and
I think that helps a lot.
it goes right into so much good because so many of us are trying to change that outside perception of the industry, right? Where we want people to see us for who we are and not judge us based on what the industry was 30 years ago and what their perceptions of the industry were back then, because it has changed so much. And we look at it from that student standpoint in the need to try and attract really smart people to this industry because it's not getting any easier. And so I think the more we come with different opportunities like that, or just the ability to go in and not just talk about rebuilding a transmission, right? Or just working on a car. Like, you're bringing a different element, and it shows off so much of the good of the industry. And oh, I can't get over how much I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, I highly encourage it's not a really expensive investment. You don't have to sign up, to invest every single year. But if there's shops out there that want to try to give back, that's certainly something that's well worth it, I feel. And we've
Yeah.
done it with 2 schools locally so far.
Do they sorry to go off topic here for just a second, but do they have any offerings for employees by chance? Like
They
where
they
yeah.
have, the Smart Dollar program, so if you had employees that you wanted to, offer something to, they had that. Um, a couple of our ladies in our group do the Smart Dollar with their staff, and I've heard good things. I haven't done that yet, but I've heard really good things. One thing we did do with one of our employees, he had just got married, and they were both very young, and they found out she's getting ready to have a baby. She got pregnant, after they got married, so we gifted them one-on-one training, financial trainings for them because they wanted to buy a house, and that was really, really cool. So yeah, they have a lot of resources for businesses. I highly recommend the Dave Ramsey programs.
Oh, man, how cool is that? I wasn't even meaning to bring that part up, but that is, I think, something so many shops could learn from, and not just shops, like any business. If you have employees, I look at it and you see how much that personal life and maybe the inability to manage money or maybe just not making enough money to manage everything that you have, your obligations, giving resources where people might not even know they have a blind spot is so powerful. And I hope any business listening to this is thinking about that and thinking about their people, because when we go into our job ads or we go into our marketing and say we really care about our team, that's the kind of stuff that actually shows you actually care about your team and you're not just saying it, right? Like you're caring about them as people more so than just their paycheck and really the work that they bring to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had years ago I would listen to the Dave Ramsey podcast and stuff when I was in college. I used a lot of his methods that I would hear on the radio with his trainings and teachings, and I got my student loans paid off before I was 40 years old.
Wow.
Just by doing some of those little things. Or he talked about, pick a credit card or pick a bill and pay a big chunk towards that and pay smaller amounts. And then once you get that paid off, take that amount and add it to the next one. Before you know it, you get motivated quicker because you're knocking this one out and you're knocking that one out instead of trying to pay on all these, across the board, and you don't feel like you're gaining any traction on anything. And so I talked to the students about that. This is what it taught me. And it was probably about a year and a half ago. We were looking for some leadership stuff, and we know we have a lot of industry training, but I wanted to kind of step outside the box and do more of a entrepreneur leadership focus. And so that's when I had looked up one of his conferences, and I sent my dad and my sister because she's our service advisor. She's coming up in the ranks. Dad's wanting to retire, so how is that transition going to look? Who's the next person under me? So that's how we kind of got back being involved again. And I'm always learning. And one of the things that had come up in some of the conversations that we had had is a book called The Ideal Team Player. Have you
Mm.
read that?
Is that Lencioni?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had an ops manager that we had hired, and we were just struggling with bringing him onto the way we think and our culture because he came from like a Meineke or a Midas and you know, a big
It's different.
it's totally different. It was very much about, oh, just keep the employee happy, do whatever you have to do, tolerate their behaviors, where we're not going to do that. If they're calling in, they're putting stress on the other employees. It's disrespectful. We're not going to allow it. They're out. And that book, I gave it to him because I knew as I read the story how I related to it. And he does a fantastic job of explaining the types of people that you need in your company. And I gave it to him and I said, let me know when you've got that read. We'll discuss it. And sure enough, he's like, everything you said to me, it's like a light bulb. He's like, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Mm.
And he's really come around after reading that. But I have shared that book with a number of people. Highly recommend it. It's a short read. So if you don't like reading, you can also listen to it within just a few hours on an audio book. But very impactful. And I think he does a great job talking about culture and people.
And even if you don't like reading, with Patrick Lencioni's writing, he makes it really, really easy to read. It is, oh, very engaging and almost to the point to where it's weird. I think some books, when you're reading, you almost forget that you're reading, right? And I think he has that ability to kind of pull you into a story and does a really, really good job at it.
Yeah. Even I gave it to my assistant to read. I gave it to my sister to read. I'm giving it to my salesman to read. Where it's just part of reading here. I've incorporated it into the leadership program at our shop because it really has changed the way everybody thinks. It's changed the way we've decided to hire. We'll do a traditional hiring interview. And now we bring them in for a team lunch, and I let my technicians question the technician coming in. And it's amazing the questions that they ask. "Are you clean and neat, and will you put things back?" Well, that's certainly direct, and now he knows what the king's like. One guy asked, "Do you know how to drill out your own bolts that you break?" Or is this
That's a good question, by the way.
yeah, is this something that I'm gonna have to come over there and help me with constantly? So they did a great job, and I think he was gonna be a great fit. So hopefully he starts Monday as planned and he works out really well. But it's definitely something that I think most people should read and give some consideration to because it will change the way you think about things.
What I just this is so cool because I think what you're doing there is you're not hiring out of desperation, right? And I think a lot of shops go wrong there where they're just desperate. They need help. They've got customers breathing down their neck and they're really struggling with that. And it forces them to hire somebody that doesn't fit who they are. And so um I think when I look at that, it makes me so happy because it gets your team to buy in and they're the ones, really kind of setting the stage for that culture. And uh we had an author on the podcast at one point who talked about he has a book called Seeds of Culture. And he was just saying like culture is so hard to define when like you're writing it out, but he said the best way that he defined it was the way we do stuff around here. And when you talk about that, that's what they're trying to get to, right? There's a certain standard, there's a way that we go about our work, and allowing your team to kind of make a judgment call on whether they're going to live up to that standard is absolutely huge.
Mhm. Definitely. I believe everything you said. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. I think they were a little caught off guard when we told them we were gonna do it the first time, uh, but I think they realized how valuable it was, and I think they had fun.
It's good.
Free lunch is
Y
always good.
Free lunch. I joke with our we for those of you that don't know, my family has an automotive shop that I grew up in. And I still give the guys a hard time about like, "Hey, I'm going to put you in probably kind of an uncomfortable position here, but there's a reason that we want to do this, and that's because we need your buy-in on this. We need you to want to help this person." And if we're bringing, I use the term family loosely because there are differences, but I also look at it as you're spending a lot of time with this person. You are really, really going to be, you could become really good friends out of this. Like that's one of my favorite things about business is when we have team members that become friends that go beyond even just work, right? And not that that's an expectation, it's just kinda cool when you see it happen. So, I just think when you get people, like-minded people around each other that are smart and driven and wanting better for the whole, you're going to be happier, and I just love seeing that.
Mhm. Definitely. We try to keep the conversation away from money, because we do pay our team well, and we know ultimately nobody's coming to work for free.
Right.
That is gonna be a make or break, but we want them to realize that our emphasis is on their quality of life and the quality of work that we bring to our customers, that we care about each other, and those kinds of things, instead of just hiring on, "Okay, well, I'll pay you this, what can you do for me?" And
It never ends well that way.
absolutely meaningless. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's a me versus you type of relationship, and that just doesn't that doesn't work.
No. no, it doesn't. And then they get complacent after about a year and they're not performing like they're used to, but they're still making money and they want to make more money because they've been there for a year and it just doesn't work and it's a horrible cycle.
Every shop, dealership, and business in our industry depends on great technicians. Between the technician shortage, disconnected school relationships, and lack of trustworthy workforce data, it makes it difficult for shops to plan, hire, and grow. That's where ASE Connects comes in. Created in partnership with WrenchWay, ASE Connects is a membership designed specifically for shops like yours to help you build a stronger technician pipeline by connecting with schools, empowering you with tools and data to improve your recruiting, retention, and performance. With ASE Connects, you can connect with local schools through School Assist, start building relationships, and support the programs that educate our future technicians. You can also access verified data on technician pay, benefits, and labor rates through the Industry Data Exchange so you know how your shop compares locally and nationally. Lastly, you can get proven strategies for leadership, employee development, and shop management through members-only guides, templates, and events. Join ASE Connects to strengthen your workforce and build a stronger, smarter shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/solutions/shops or follow the link in the show notes. You had mentioned that you sent your sister and your dad to the Ramsey conference. Was that like the entree leadership one or something different?
Yes, the entree leadership one. Yeah.
I've never been. That's a bucket list one for me. I see it every year and I'm like, that is such a cool thing, such a great book to base everything off of. But it is
One of the best conferences they'd ever been to, and I'm
I believe it.
ops guy this year.
Really. That's I need to get they always do it outside of Nashville, right? Over by their headquarters, or is it somewhere else?
Sometimes they do it outside of Nashville. It was in Colorado last year.
Oh, okay.
They move it. This year it's going to be in Coronado Springs.
All right. That's good to know. I need to get back on that train because I love that. And I have always respected Dave Ramsey. It's the same as you, like listened to his stuff very early and it had an impact on the way I went about my life. And I just foundational principles that are pretty, they're not hard to understand. They're hard to execute. And I think that's even understanding a budget, right? If it's your personal budget, if you're good at that, that probably does translate into helping run a budget for a business, right? Like if you're an operations manager, general manager, whatever it might be, and you've got a budget put on your lap, that's some pretty darn good training to have and something that can have an immense impact on your personal life as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you get a manager in there like that, making those decisions, it impacts the entire team. So yeah, they have poor finances. I see that a lot in um like city councils, people running small towns. Horrible, horrible financial behaviors. And then they get in there because it's a small town and everybody knows each other and there's not a lot to choose from. And this small town is just, a disaster.
Shambles.
Yeah, and that's just case in point, which is one of the reasons we donated that financial curriculum to a really small school. It wasn't typically what Dave Ramsey goes after because they like to make a larger impact, but it was something I felt was extremely important because I see what happens in those little rural areas, and they need it more than anybody.
I agree. As somebody that lives in a small rural area, I totally agree. It's it's something that young people, not even just industry specific stuff, right? Like just in general, I wish we could spread more of that throughout. In my brother's a financial advisor, and he goes in and speaks to schools and does a really really nice job with that on some of the similar things, right? On budgeting and investing and just giving them enough to have an understanding, but I truly think that's really impactful stuff that, that can help people out, and I love to hear that.
We'll tell you
All
further.
right, so
That's
yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna pump his ego up like that, but I say that he's doing a good job with it. Uh, how we're gonna get into the amazing women in automotive here, but we'll spend a lot of time on that. But I did want to ask how's the wholesale business? That is like I remember kind of maybe early days of that with you and it seemed like a great idea. It's got to be doing pretty well, I'd assume.
It's doing pretty well, yeah. I need to add another salesman, that'll help our team a lot. We have multiple vendors. What makes us different is we use different vendors. So where you can go and buy just from Jasper, you can go buy just from this place, but we have vendors that I've tested in my shop. So there's certain ones that I won't distribute for. But my customers can call me and I can look across the board at multiple different vendors and do the shopping for them so they're not stuck on the phone trying to find the best price and the fastest time to get it there. My team will just call them back with it. So, I mean, overall, I'm going to say it's slow right now for the
Yeah.
industry. In general, I hear that from a lot of my shops that only buy from us. They're just not getting a lot of yeses right now. People are hanging on to their dollars. I've encouraged a lot of shops who don't offer financing to try to get that to help with some of the no's, because people are struggling right now. But other than that, the business is still doing really well, and we're glad we had gotten into it. We started it just before COVID, so that was tough.
I remember we launched WrenchWay about the same time, and that was I think WrenchWay is a platform. We were still Find a Wrench back then. The WrenchWay is a platform we were supposed to launch like this time in 2020 and 6 years ago, almost to the date. I mean, I remember being St. Patrick's Day in we're office outside of Madison, Wisconsin, being like, "Oh no, what do we do?" Like it's just being lost of like I don't even know if like shops are going to stay in business through this. I don't know what's going on and I just remember my co-founder Mark and I sitting at the table being like this is going to be chaotic and I think we cracked a beer, sat back and we're like there's not much we can do. You may as well just yeah. We were swimming in it though. I cannot imagine same thing I'm guessing with you, just don't know what to think.
No, it was, we really started hitting the rural areas because they didn't seem to have the fear the big cities did. They were still more willing to talk to you or, we didn't do a lot of the door-to-door sales. We did a lot of phone calls and Zoom and stuff like that, but, I figure if you can start a business during
You can do anything.
anything, you can and that's when the women's group started. However, for them, it was one of those things where at the time I was not the facilitator. He had started it with a woman named Dory Epstein, and she ran it for just a short period and wanted to go and do something different and asked if I would step in. And because the group had gotten so close due to COVID and everybody being so uncertain about things and how to handle situations, I was like, yeah, this is too valuable to just let it dissolve. So I let him talk me into it. And here we are.
Well, and when you say he, we're talking about Malin, right? Yes. Yeah, and Malin recently passed away. How long? Yeah, so we're just over a year. And just before we dive into the legacy he's kind of left behind, I just want to give him so much credit for his heart and dedication to the industry as a whole. I met him through you and had a few conversations with him. A really genuinely nice guy and very smart, very intelligent, and I think we're all lucky that he created something like this to leave a legacy behind. You know, a legacy that's going to obviously far outlive him and gives it maybe even that extra bit of purpose, right? Because you wanna see what Malin created to kind of just keep living and keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. In September of last year, we had gone to the ASTA Expo, and they presented me with the Golden Wrench Award because of the amazing women. And I was just in tears because I didn't know they were going to do that. A few of the girls that are on the board knew about it, and they had been, contacted. And it was just like, this is for Malin. This is all for Malin. If
Uh,
it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. So it was a very emotional moment last.
yeah. He was all that was good about the industry, right? And wanting to create something that was bigger than him. And I think that he did that with what we're talking about with amazing women in automotive. And for those of you, I was telling Tiffany before we got on, we recorded a podcast. It's probably been 5 years since the last podcast we did. And I look back and I was truly embarrassed by how bad my audio was in that first podcast. So I apologized to Tiffany because I was like, "Oh my goodness, like we've come a long way on the podcast. We're still not even perfect. We're not close to perfect, but from what I saw in that podcast watching it back, I'm like, oh, that just genuine embarrassment on my part." But then you were walking through a lot of the why in that podcast and really being able to paint the picture and almost the vision of what you saw with this. Can you give us an update on everything? And even maybe for those folks that didn't want to listen through my terrible audio in the first one, to give them an idea of what we've got going on with Amazing Women in Automotive?
Absolutely, I'd love to. 2026 has been a fantastic year of growth in our numbers and the events and the support that we've received. Um, Last year in 2025, we had our very first women's retreat that we put together. After Malin passed, that was one of the things he was extremely passionate about doing. He talked about it. He's like, "Come on, we need to do that. We just need to find a place. We need to do a retreat." And, "Oh, we will." I'm a finance person, right? So I'm like, "Well, when the money gets to this point, when and we just need to, and that's how he was. He's like, "We just need to make it happen. Whatever it would make it happen." And he would pull the money out of his own pocket if that's what he had to do because he felt like it was so important to have this group and this resource for women in the industry. He did a lot of coaching, so he did a lot of service advisor coaching. He had a service advisor training that he did on weekends. He'd travel and provide that, and a lot of the people he worked with were women in the industry, and he really did believe they were extremely good at their job, probably better than most of the men that he would encounter.
Yeah.
And technicians, a lot of times were undervalued when they were female, just not given a chance or stuck at a service advisor desk because they were so good at that. But what they really wanted to do and what they went to school for was wrenching, but they just wouldn't put them back there. So he saw a lot of the struggles that the women face in the industry today. And a lot of times they'll either leave the industry or just be stuck unhappy because they don't have a community a soundboard or somebody to talk to empower them to make a decision so that they do what's right for them. And so we did the retreat. We went to Park City, Utah. There was only about 10 of us for the first retreat. It was kind of last minute. We threw it together, but it was absolutely amazing. Amazing. We couldn't stop talking about the next one. So earlier this year, or it was right after Christmas, I think, right around New Year's, Sherry from Milwaukee had reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I saw you guys did a retreat last year." I said, "We did." She said, "Well, our team had been looking at something like that for a while, and we saw that you did it, and we're wondering if it would be something you might want to partner on." And so in my mind, I'm not wanting to partner with a big organization that might change what Malin intended, what he wanted.
Okay.
So I said, "I tell you what, I think there could be potential for a great fit here." I love what Sherry, we talked about that earlier, what she does with vision. So I said, "Let me get my team together. You get your team together, and let's have a meeting and discuss whether or not our visions align for what we want." And my main concern was I'm nationwide, where there is a Midwest association, part of ACA. I'm actually international. I have Canadian members. I have Ecuadorian members. I have members from Mexico. I mean, all over the place.
It's wild.
It had that much growth. We started AWiA Latina the end of last year, I think, is when they had their first meeting. So we're
That is crazy. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So we on Wednesdays we have our regular meeting that we've always had, and then on Tuesdays, I think they changed the meeting to 6 p.m. Central Time now, but they have the Latina meeting. It's all Spanish speaking. So for all
Wow.
the Latin American countries, they all get on, and that's doing really well too. So it's extremely exciting. I feel extremely blessed with the support that the industry has given us. But ultimately, we ended up seeing eye to eye. And so this year's retreat is going to be in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we are working with Milwaukee and the sponsorships. We're already nearly 50% booked, and it's not even until June. So we haven't even met our first price raise deadline for registrations yet. So we're just really excited about what this year holds.
This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. So tell me a little bit about what happens at the retreat or what your plan is for Gatlinburg.
So, the women's retreat is a time for the women to come and focus on themselves. Oftentimes, we maybe the manager at the shop or front desk, and we do a lot of taking care of our customers, taking care of our staff, our employees. Then we go home, we take care of our family. A lot of times, we fail to take much care of ourselves at all. So it will give them a few days to focus on themselves, to relax, unwind, hopefully de-stress, and find a way to maybe work on some boundary issues that they have. Learning to say no, um, becoming empowered to do something that's holding them back, and just give them strength and energy. It's not high pressure. It's not like going to a conference where vision is fantastic and there's so much, but you come home exhausted. But all these ideas that you're going to implement, this is time for them to slow down, to focus on themselves and their growth and what they want and what they need, and to take a plan of action back to try to focus on themselves more, to make connections, to meet some of the women that are on the calls that they talk to every week in person. And we usually have a big event the last night. Last year we did a on-site hibachi with a fire show. It was fantastic.
That sounds amazing.
It was awesome. They huge fun event. I don't want to give anything away right now, but we've got plans for a really cool dinner the last night this year. So, yeah, it really is a rest and relaxation.
How do you come up with the location? Is it throwing a dart at a map, or do you have a pretty good idea where you're wanting to go?
Well, it has to be a place with a really big house with plenty of bathrooms and a large kitchen. So that's kind of how that works. So Utah, we knew would have a lot of really large houses because they have lots of big families.
Yep.
Gatlinburg, there's a lot of lodges and things of that nature. So the house we ended up getting, it holds like 56 people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is a massive.
This is a big house.
Feel homey, right? I don't want
Yeah.
to take everybody and put them all in a hotel room. It defeats the purpose of the camaraderie and the networking and making sure everybody's interacting. You know, most of them won't even have their own bedrooms. They'll have bunks. There'll be 2 or 3 or 4 of them, in the same bedroom. Um, separate beds, of course. We're not gonna force anybody to really get to know each other. That's know each other. But that's what the whole point of it is to meet people and be together with people that support you and understand what you're going through, what your struggles are.
Man, that is cool. And what are the backgrounds of the ladies? Are they different positions in shops? Is it some of the vendors, or is it, like, give me an idea of like who are the attendees?
Yeah, so just like our membership, it ranges from people who are maybe working in parts and sales, vendors, to managers, business owners, service writers, technicians. It's a wide variety, ages range. One of the things we thought would be fun to do at the event as an icebreaker is to break everybody into the decades they were born in or the decades at high school because there will be such a wide variety. And what I always tell the young ones is you would be absolutely shocked how much you can teach the ladies that have been in the industries for years, right? Because you're the same age as some of the new customers that are coming in. And so learning to interact or learning how they view things, I mean, everybody has something to offer.
Yeah. How so you go to the retreat, you're all in the same place. Are you having, is it like classes or just kind of sessions where you're interacting? I love the idea of doing it generationally. Give me an idea of maybe what somebody could expect in terms of a schedule once they're there.
Right. Well, so one of the cool things is we'll have an itinerary with times and things scheduled out. The first night, everybody's going to arrive. We have an awesome charcuterie and wine event that's going to be there just for everybody to kind of come in because, well, of course, everybody arrives at different times. So we weren't going to do a big dinner that somebody might miss. So kind of a come and go, get to know everybody. They're all going to get journals to write in so we can start to focus our energy on the point of the retreat, to take a little deeper dive into ourselves and who we are and what we need, to be healthy women in the industry
Yeah.
and be, you know, better than when you came. So the first night's pretty laid back and relaxed. The next morning, we're not going to have a hard start for the session. We'll kind of let everybody get up. We'll have breakfast. And then once everybody's up and around, they've had time to get dressed, we'll have our first session, which hasn't been planned yet because we've still got some time, but likely it'll be on some of the topics I mentioned, uh, possibly boundaries, maybe dealing with working with family, maybe it could be a number of things that typically come up in a lot of the weekly meetings that we see that women are having challenges with. And then that session will go as long as it needs to. If it feels like we need a little more time and there's a lot of ladies that have this issue or it needs to be discussed, it's kind of an open timetable. We just do whatever we feel everybody needs, and then we'll move on to the next activity, whatever it might be. So, yeah, that's one of the things that makes this different is we'll have a tentative schedule, we'll work everything in, but the time there's just no hard stops, hard starts, very relaxed, and that's what we want it to be.
I have to feel like I have to imagine it is, you have that feeling of it being a safe space, right? Or being able to openly talk about things that maybe you wouldn't be comfortable talking about in any other type of conference setting or any other type of meeting setting. You get that feeling that that people are just more open in that kind of setting?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, even you'd be surprised, even in our online Zoom calls during the week, the amount of tears, stress, frustration. We don't record the Zoom calls. There's no audio. I don't allow anybody to bring their note takers in because confidentiality is important and we want people to be able to share. And sometimes they're sharing very personal things. Sometimes they're sharing about their boss. and their frustrations with, hey, he hired me as a manager, but he just won't turn me loose. I feel like my hands are tied and I know what I need to do, but I just can't do it. Conversations like that. It may be personal stuff about themselves and their family and things that they're dealing with. They've got a spouse, they have to go in and run the business. They're frustrated. Maybe the marriage is having a hard time because the business is struggling. Uh, things like that. So even at the retreat, nothing's recorded. No sessions will be photographed or anything of that nature because it is extremely important to us that they can share fully without, you know, worrying about recourse or somebody saying anything. So that's extremely important. Yes.
The amount of stress that has to take off a person, right? Where you can maybe you've been carrying something for a long time and you can talk about it openly with other people that understand the position that you're in. Just allow, like, maybe for the first time in a long time for a lot of these ladies, an avenue to vent and not do it in a healthy way where you can get support and you can feel comfortable talking about shortcomings and just, I think in this day and age where everybody has to look so perfect on social media and like everything, like everybody's lives are perfect, and then you really talk to them and maybe not so much, just having that avenue to be able to tell the truth and be able to, just have people that will empathize with you and understand your situation and know that, if they're running a business, it's not always glorious. And if it doesn't matter how much business success you have, it can be challenging at home. Right. And like, there's just so many advantages to having those open conversations. And I just love that relaxed atmosphere because I do think where good stuff comes out.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I'm really excited. And it really amazes me, but then going back to the Wednesday meetings, you'll see somebody become a member and they finally start coming to the meetings. Because at first, usually they'll just kind of Facebook stalk, and kind of look what's happening. They're not real sure. Okay, do I want to commit to this? Is it a bunch of weirdos? Or is this man bashing? We get a lot of that. No, no. We don't even allow that. That is absolutely not constructive. We're not doing that. But watching these women, like, from their first meeting to 3 or 4 months later, and just the light and the energy and the change, even if they're still struggling as they were when they first came to the group, just they feel more empowered to do something about it, or it gives them a space to vent, or like you said, talk and just let some of that stuff off their chest and know that they're not the only ones going through that. So it's just incredibly powerful.
Mm. So how does somebody become a member? How does one of the ladies that wants to get more involved, how do they get involved?
So the best way to go and become a member would just be to go to our website, which is www.amazingwia.com. When they go on there, they'll find a little button that says become a member. Membership's free. We haven't charged for membership since we started. I
That's
don't
crazy.
At some point, if we got big enough to where we would need staff, we may have to change that. But we're trying very hard to just get support from the industry and sponsorships to avoid doing that altogether if possible. But right now it's free, so hurry up and get in.
Yeah. That is incredible in itself, to be able to continue to do that where price isn't a determining factor of whether you can participate. I'm sure there's been a lot of people that have benefited because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That you don't always, especially in those moments when you're struggling, you don't always have the financial means to pay for a coach.
Right.
And I want to make clear, we are not a coaching company at all. We are a resource, we're a community, but we are not coaching. So there's no competition. We have a lot of coaching companies that send people to us. A lot of their employees will attend. Women at Auto Care, we actually work a lot with them side by side. We have members that are part of them and us because the value is different and the platform is different. So, we highly encourage anybody out there who may be looking for a resource or struggle to go ahead, just fill out the membership. Let me start sending you the emails, and then eventually one day you'll get on one of those calls, and I guarantee you'll just be hooked because the ladies on there are amazing. Everybody is very welcoming because they were that new girl once. So they're excited to help. They're excited to reach out to somebody new. Like you came over to my booth. There was a ton of ladies over there.
Yes.
Some already members just wanting to help recruit. We even started an ambassador program where we made cards for the ladies who they'll go to a bunch of different conferences and they meet another lady and they recruit her. And so now they've got little business cards that says I'm an AWiA ambassador and they can recruit on their own because they were doing it anyway. And it's just another way for us to continue to grow, but it's cheap and easy.
Oh, my goodness. Just you look at I mentioned this earlier, but just even having the visibility to others that are, doing well in the industry and wanting to help out and just not being guarded with their approach, I think is so big. I love what you said about the it's okay to be that gawker and to be the one that's kind of just looking from afar and kind of monitoring what's going on. And I know there are a lot of people, my wife included, that would be takes time for her to trust somebody, right? And I think that like when you kind of gain that, we joke back and forth that I'm like the golden retriever. I kind of trust everybody and wagging my tail whenever I meet somebody. She's not. She's the opposite of me and has probably safeguarded me at times when my golden retriever personality wants to come out. But she's guarded that way, and I could totally see, like, as you're looking at that, people that you do have to gain their trust, and you do have to gain that it's a safe space, like, just kind of that idea to have the avenue to be able to watch that, kind of at a distance, and then as you feel comfortable, get more and more involved, and then, like you said, once you get on that call, I just think that that's when the true impact hits, right? Like, where you get on and you understand what everybody else is talking about, and you feel, even I don't know how that first meeting goes for somebody. Can they sit kind of in the background and watch, or are they put center stage to start? Like, how do you work with that? Depends?
So, most of them are pretty quiet their first meeting.
Yeah.
So typically what I'll do is I'll just say, "Oh, hi, welcome to the group. This is your first time in. Will you introduce yourself to everyone?" And then they'll say a little bit about themselves. And depending on how large the group is, sometimes we'll have as few as 6 if it's like a holiday week when a lot of people are off, as many as 20. So if it's a really large group, I probably won't do it, but I'll have some of the ladies introduce themselves so they kind of know who's in the group. But I won't pick on them too much the first time. I'll give them a chance to warm up, and then if I notice that maybe a conversation's perked some interest, I might pry a little bit or ask something. But no, I'm not one to pick on you and call you out and make you speak. I'm gonna let you get warmed up and comfortable. So no, no,
That
don't
is
have to worry about that.
how do you feel you've grown as a facilitator through all of this? Because that is something that is a unique skill in just being able to listen and be able to drive conversation is a talent in its own right. So have you seen maybe growth in yourself through this?
I think I think so. More confidence and more knowing how I want to lead. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go before, but now I have a, a clearer path on what I want and what I expect. The members also give me a lot of feedback, and I feel that the group should grow to become whatever they need. So I'm not like, no, this is just how we do it. It can change, and I may change and make a left or a right, depending on what's going on. And we don't know, we may not have another COVID or something of that nature at some point. Oh, so I try not to be super strict, much like the retreat. The meetings are very similar. We don't typically have, hey, come on the call, we're going to discuss this. We come on the call, see everybody. Does anybody have anything going on this week? I'll probably have a talking points maybe for backup if nobody has anything going on, but that rarely happens. they've almost always got something to talk about. And I try to get to those things first because that's what is important. That's what the group is about. And I know a couple of the members of the women in auto care. They said, "Hey, I wanted you to know because I thought this was a super huge compliment to you that they changed the way they do their women's group now because this was such a welcoming space. They're doing it like you." And I said, "Well, good." I said, "That's all."
Yes.
I said, "If anybody can benefit, then that's fantastic." And I'm super excited about that. So I knew if a larger group like that would copy poor little old me, then we're doing something right.
You're doing a lot right. This is just the fact that you've got so many balls that you're juggling in the air and bringing this on, and like we talked about before, continuing Malin's legacy and seeing this grow. I remember having some of those very initial conversations, and even I remember back thinking how cool the vision was, and not 100% knowing how I could help, and trying to figure it out, and it's just neat to see the evolution of it and how it's matured, right? And how you keep pushing it forward, and continuing that legacy. So I just so many compliments to you and everybody involved. Just such a neat thing.
Well, and in your defense, I think yours was one of the first podcasts I had done when it started, so I didn't notice the audio was bad. It was great for me.
If you watch it back now, you're like, "Oh my goodness, Jay, what are you doing?" But no,
But that
that's good.
takes time too, getting used to Zoom calls, getting used to that kind of stuff and talking to people and being comfortable in that way to talk to the box. You know,
It's different, isn't it?
it's absolutely different when you're not used to that. You're used to that face to face counter interaction with customers. So yeah, that's definitely changed. Now learn to utilize those platforms and make it work and find a way to make people comfortable with it. And so yeah, it's been fun. It's been an adventure. But yeah, I'm glad we're going places.
All right. Well, as we finish this episode off, something that we've introduced since the last podcast that you've done are just some quick hitting fun questions. We'll ask you three of them, and just meant to get to know you a little bit more. The first being, what was your first car?
A teal Saturn coupe.
Teal.
Yeah, it was teal.
All right. All right. Teal Saturn Coupe. I like that. I think I can say with 100% certainty that's the first teal Saturn Coupe that we've had as a first car. So we've had all kinds of different responses to that question. It's very fascinating. I don't know. I love that.
Corvette, but it had the same little pop up headlights. So that was
You were lucky if the headlights worked. I know I had like one of my cousins had one where like one would pop up and the other wouldn't, and sometimes it'd have to go manually kind of pick it up. So yes, I general. I think that was a Ford Probe, but yes, very funny. Uh, Favorite type of food?
oh my gosh. Hmm. I don't know if I have a favorite type. I'm kind of a foodie, so I like to try different things from different areas.
Same.
If I go somewhere, I want to try the local cuisine. If I had to pick a favorite, maybe Italian.
Ooh, I don't hate any Italian. I think that's also a common theme here throughout these questions that the marketing team gave me to ask, is that normally I've not had one person say their favorite type of food group and me being like, no, like I love all kinds of all different variations of food. So can always go for a good Italian restaurant. That's good. The last one is the toughest one, and I think might make you think a little bit, but best piece of advice you've ever received.
Oh, you can do it. I think that's probably one of the things I tell my nieces and nephews. Um, that I have learned that discomfort when you're doing something out of your comfort zone is growth and you're learning, and that eventually becomes a positive thing. not so scary because you know that that feeling is you changing for the better. So I'm going to say, yeah, the support people have always, oh, you can do it. "Oh, well, why don't you decide to be on the board? Oh, I've never been on a board before. No, you can do it. You'll be great. Trust them. If they tell you that, eh, as long as they're not somebody like trying to steal money from you.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Don't be the Labrador Retriever, right? Be more like a Rottweiler. You listen to this. Um, but I think listen to them. If there's somebody you've known for quite some time and they say, "Hey, you should do this," they often see something in you that maybe you don't realize you have yet.
Boy, is that good advice. And sorry to put you on the spot there, but that is really, really good advice. I had read a book not too long ago called The Talent Code. I think that's what it was called, The Talent Code, where it talked about, I'll probably say this wrong, but myelin in your brain and how when you kind of force yourself to do different things, it's going to force kind of that growth that we all look for. And if you just get in a comfort zone, you really don't push it, you're not growing. And going back to everything that you're doing right now, my goodness, you're pushing a lot of stuff. You're growing that brain in a lot of different ways. So I,
I need a vacation before too long.
yeah, you're gonna need a retreat from your retreat. Just yes, yes, a well deserved vacation. Hopefully, you get that sometime soon. Well, Tiffany, I always enjoy talking to you. I have so much respect for you and everything that you've accomplished throughout your career, and just always a joy to talk to. So, thanks for coming on the podcast. Hopefully, my audio does it justice this time. Hopefully, I didn't screw it up this time, but just really appreciate you.
Well, thanks, Jay. It was good to catch up again. We all get busy with everything that we're doing. So I'm glad we connected at Vision and we're able to do this. It's been fun.
All right, let's do it again. Hopefully, not wait the 4 or 5 years again to do the next one.
That's right. Definitely.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you like this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team. WrenchWay is dedicated to promoting and improving careers in the automotive, diesel, and collision industries. In partnership with ASE, we run the ASE Connects community, which empowers shops and dealerships with reliable data, school connections, and industry insights while helping grow the future technician workforce. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.